Tell us, what power have dreams in hell?
I thought about giving up, but I have a job to do, and I do it.
Things have changed.
Your eyes will tell me everything. Every thought, every feeling.
Did you guys butt heads during the creative process, or were you pretty much on the same page in terms of your vision and how it aligned?
There was no headbutting.
No.
In fact, it got suspiciously. We agreed on everything. Occasionally, Allan, when he would get into arguments in the writers' room, would call me and say, "What about this?" And I would say, "Well, absolutely not. That's not okay. You can't do that, because if you did that, it would make this, and this happen. But you could do this instead." And I would realize that Allan was grinning, and he was like, "Okay, good. That's what I needed to tell them something, but I wasn't quite sure how to tell that. So now I can go back to the writers and tell them that thing." But we were in agreement, absolute agreement on all the casting decisions, absolute agreement on the plot stuff.
No, we never had a moment. I mean, oftentimes I would be the bearer of bad news. That was my function. Because I was trying to spare him as much of those conversations as possible. But I would prepare him and say, we have 3 things to talk about over the next 7 minutes, and we just solve problems one by one every single time. There was never a moment where we were, where we had a different opinion about how to go about this, which was a blessing and not something I necessarily expected, but a gift every single day.
Yeah, we were collaborating on making this thing together, and we both. I think the reason why we didn't fight or argue is because the thing in our heads was the same. The thing that we were trying to make, and the thing, and oftentimes when you're trying to collaborate with somebody and it's just not working, it's because you've said that you're going to be making a private detective musical comedy, and they've heard private detective, and they've heard comedy, and they've heard musical, and everyone's trying to make their own thing. Whereas for us, we wanted to make Sandman, and we wanted to make Sandman as really good high-end television. And we both understand television, and we both understand, Allan, I think, understands it better than I do, and we both understand Sandman, and I probably understand it better than anybody. That meant that I was a resource for him. Rather than telling him how to do things, I was always there to go, no, you don't want to do this, because I tried doing that in a draft I deleted back in 1991.
Can I ask about the characterization? Who kind of encompassed the vision that you saw for the character, and who kind of surprised you and brought something different to the table?
Oh, great question. I think I would point at Tom Sturridge and Mason Alexander Park as people who gave us what we'd hoped for. Everything we dreamed of, they just came and they gave us that thing. I would point to Boyd Holbrook, the Corinthian, as somebody who gave us something that we were not expecting, which was, we were expecting charm. But what we got was a kind of rather genuine niceness and gentleness, and the idea that, yes, this character is absolutely the patron saint of serial killers. Yes, he's an escaped nightmare walking the earth. And by the end, you feel rather sympathetic for him. If you were alive and you were this thing, and this is what you've been made to be, you'd want him to carry on.
Yeah.
So that was a surprise.
Yeah.
That felt like it was something that grew in the making.
Yeah. We genuinely started writing the Corinthian around Boyd and what Boyd's gifts and talents are. And I would say the same thing with Joanna Constantine. Once, we had Jenna in our minds, it just was Jenna. It all came out of Jenna. So we were very fortunate.
So you both have had work adapted onto screen. What was it like for you, Allan, seeing the Young Avengers slowly coming to life now. What do you think makes a successful comic book adaptation?
Well, I mean, I've been on, I guess, both sides of it. I'm so thrilled that the Young Avengers characters are making their way to the screen and that people are experiencing them in a new way. And Marvel seems completely behind it, and all of the sort of inclusive aspects of that team are being honored, which I love seeing. And with Wonder Woman, it was sort of the same as this process, where the creative process it seems to be guided by a love of the original material and an understanding of what makes it work and what makes a character like Morpheus or like, you know, Diana in Wonder Woman endure for decades and decades and decades. There's an emotional currency that those characters have that transcends the fantasy elements and the special effects and the punching. Do you know, it's like, what are the emotional hooks of those characters? And I think as long as we remain true to them, then things tend to work. People feel things when they watch these programs and these movies. At least I hope.
Can I ask you about two characters in particular? Gwendolyn as Lucifer was a surprise choice because Lucifer's obviously usually played by a man. What was the thought behind that? And I also wanted to ask you, Neil, about the character of Desire, because they're gender fluid, and this was something that was created in the 80s. How did you come up with that when that concept wasn't really so prevalent at that time?
Absolutely good questions. Gwendolyn, what we went for in Lucifer is we weren't going, this is a male character or a female character. We were going, this is a fallen angel. We want somebody who looks and feels like a fallen angel. We want that, the size, we want the majesty, we want the beauty, we want the grace, and we want them to be really dangerous. And for me, if you're casting a fallen angel, you could go anywhere. I mean, that was, you know, the first time I ever wrote an angel for television. It was the Angel Islington in Neverwhere, and we wound up casting the very young and beautiful Peter Capaldi at the time. Peter Capaldi was amazing, but we were also looking at women, and you know, if we could have got Tilda Swinton, we would have done. So for me, casting Gwendolyn as Lucifer was a no-brainer. There is nobody more tall, beautiful, imposing, and more angelic than Gwendolyn that I've encountered so far on this planet. For Desire, at the time I went, I'm creating a family. There are going to be 3 men. It's a family of 7. There will be 3 men, there will be 3 women, and then there will be Desire. And because Desire has to encompass everything that anybody wants, any gender or lack of gender that somebody loves, they have to contain within themselves all possible genders, and none. That, of course, a non-binary Desire where, and it was also an advantage of it being a comic, because if you're drawing a comic, you just say to the, you're writing a comic, you say to the artist, give me a character who is neither female nor male, but looks gorgeous wherever you're coming from. I think I based the original suggestions in the script for Desire on the young Annie Lennox at the time. So what was remarkable for me was being able to find Mason, who actually contacted me through Twitter. And Mason, we had dinner last night with the cast, and Mason astonished Kirby, our death, by showing their tattoos. And they had an Endless tattoo and a Desire tattoo. And they'd had them long before Sandman, because as far as they were concerned, they'd seen themselves in the character. And that was so huge for me.
One final question. The Endless siblings, we haven't seen them all. Will they be coming later on?
Right. Yes. If we do a season 2, you will see more. Hopefully, if by the end of season 2, you would have encountered the whole family.